Hi, I'm Lee. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm a short, overweight, middle-aged white dude. I've got thinning brown hair, black glasses, I'm wearing a grey t-shirt, and I'm sitting in my Tesla Model Y because in this video, we're going on a bear hunt. I'm kidding, we're driving to Sydney. So this weekend is the Fully Charged show in Sydney, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, which is about 700-800 k's away. So I thought, great opportunity to drive up and see what the Model Y does on a really long road trip. Now, a few things to talk about with how I'm going to try and work this out and capture it. So on the way up to Sydney, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go almost with what the car tells me. So we're just going to use the Supercharger network, and theoretically that should be fairly straightforward and fairly simple. On the way back, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use the Supercharger network and see what that experience is like driving from Sydney to Melbourne by not using the Supercharger network. That'll be a separate video. I'll put a link somewhere around so you can watch that one as well. So some things to think about in terms of how an electric car works or how it goes. Highway driving is actually the least efficient way of driving an electric car. So for example, when you're in city driving and that stop-start, that's actually better for the battery and it'll give you more range out of the battery. Some of the things that affect the range of a battery is the temperature, so that if the battery is really cold, you're not going to get as much range out of it. Aerodynamics, so if there's a headwind that you're driving against, that's going to slow you down. The car needs to work harder. Fairly straightforward. A really cool thing that electric cars do is a thing called regenerative braking. So as you take your foot off the accelerator, the car slows itself down without using brakes, and it takes the kinetic energy of the wheels spinning and puts that energy back in the batteries. It's almost like gearing down with a manual car. But it's pretty amazing. So for example, sometimes when I've been at the top of the hill and I go down a hill, I'll end up with like 2 or 3% more in the battery at the bottom of the hill than I had at the top. It's pretty awesome. But generally on the motorway, that's not going to happen very much, and you're just sort of going at a constant speed. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of efficiency I get out of the car as I'm driving on the motorway. Now, another thing to keep in mind, I'm not going to be driving in any sort of special way. I'm just going to be driving the way I drive, because I actually don't want this to be scientific. I want this to be just the way the experience would be. So that's what we're going to do. Now, something to look at, that we'll look at during the trip, is how the efficiency is measured in an electric car. So you can see here, at the bottom here, it says 97 watt-hour per kilometer. So that's saying how efficiently you're driving. Generally, the lower the number, the better. City driving, you're probably going to get between 100, 120, probably thereabouts. And when I'm driving on the highway, it could get up as high as 150, 160, or even 170. We'll see how 180 actually. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. So first of all, how are we going to navigate this? I'm just going to follow the map. So if we just go into navigate, and I'm going to actually navigate to a camera store that I want to stop at when I get to Sydney, because there's a couple of bits and bobs I want to pick up for one of my cameras. So yeah, the one in Roseville is the one I want to go to. So 718 kilometers away. Now, cool thing is that Tesla will show you all the charges that it's suggesting that you stop at, and this is where the Tesla's opinion and my opinion in terms of how we should get there is a little bit different, because the Tesla is saying, now it's showing me the directions, but if I scroll down and then move here, it's saying the first stop should be the Supercharger in Camberwell, and I'll get there with 96%, and I'll charge for 0 minutes. Not sure what that's about. The other thing to keep in mind with that, and definitely why I'm not going to do that, is the way that a battery works on an electric car is from 10-20% all the way up to 80, the battery's going to charge really quickly. From 80 to 100%, the battery's going to charge really slowly. So you could charge the battery from 20 to 80% in like 10 to 15 minutes, but then that 80 to 100% could take you another 20, 30, 40 minutes, and 20 to 30 minutes. So it almost doubles your charge time if you go over 80%. So in most of the places that we're going to stop with the superchargers, we're not going to go over 80. We might go a little bit over 80, but once you get to 80, particularly on a long drive like this, it pays to just get to 80 and then go to the next charger, instead of spending that extra time going from 80 to 100 or 80 to 90 and waiting. I'm hoping that's making sense. So that's what the Tesla navigation is showing me. What I think I'm going to probably end up doing is there's a really cool app called a Better Route Planner that you can get, and here you can see I've mapped out the trip for me here. And what a Better Route Planner suggests is rather drive to the supercharger in Euroa, which is closer than Woodonga, because obviously if I went to Woodonga I'd only be down to 17%, and that's a bit risky. But if I stop in Euroa, I'm going to be down only to 47% in Euroa, charge to 64%, might go to 80. Then drive to Woodonga. You should get there with 17%, charge for 20 minutes, get up to 73. Then drive to Gandagai, you'll get there with 10%, charge up to 69. And then drive to Golburn, get there with 10%, charge up to 78. And then you'll end up at Camzilla with 21%. I might stay a little bit longer at those charges and get up to 80%. For probably the last one, because I want to get there with a little bit more, but we'll see how we go. We'll sort of play it by ear, and we'll see how accurate or not accurate some of these things are. Now, probably the most important thing to look at before we go into the next stage is patkos, or road snacks, as most people would call them. So, what have we got? Got our Tupperware full of fresh biltong. We then have a Tupperware full of chili dry balls, and this is really handy because it's easy to just grab one while you're driving. And then I love random Asian snacks. So here's my regular place, the snack shop on Bentley, corner Centre Road in Bentley. They actually are doing these bags, which I think is a really cool idea. So reusable bags. It's got a little pocket that you can fold the bag into, and the pocket is a teddy bear, which is, I'm easily impressed, as you well know, so you can fold it back in there. What have we got in here? We've got fruit jelly grape passion fruit. We've got soy sauce ramen chips. We've got chocolate flavored rice chips. We've got whatever that is. And the reason why I just love random Asian snacks, because I just like trying things I've never tried before. Also got some mochi in there, because you've got to have some different types of mochi. I mean, this is, bubble tea mochi. Looking forward to trying that. So, yeah. So as I mentioned, we're probably not going to go to Camberwell, because that just seems silly to go all the way to Camberwell to charge for 0 minutes and get from 96 to 100 to then be able to get to Woodonga. So we're going to go straight to Euroa from here. But a really cool thing, when you put a supercharger in the navigation of the Tesla, as you get closer to the supercharger, your Tesla will condition the battery, which means it'll warm the battery up, so the battery is at the optimum temperature for when you get to the supercharger, and you can charge as quickly as possible, because otherwise you'd have to get to the charger, plug in, the battery has to warm up a bit before it can really get as much charge as possible. So that's a really cool features that the Teslas do. So yeah, one thing I will mention, you will notice the times there are a bit off, because it shows that I'm going to get there at 11:15 at night, which is kind of pointless to get to a camera store at 11 o'clock at night. That's because I'm not driving today, I'm driving tomorrow, but I want to leave at like 6:30 in the morning, and it was going to be dark, and the camera's not great in the dark with these cameras, which, by the way, I'm not using my usual camera setup. So normally I've got an A7S Mark III in the corner filming me. I've got another A7 in the back with a nice 70 to 200 lens on the screen. That setup was just going to be a little bit awkward for a long drive, so I've gone with a GoPro setup with this, and the GoPros just don't deal well with low light. I tried lighting myself up, and it looked okay, but I thought rather film this the day before I go, and then I can film it, it's done, it's relaxed, and then tomorrow morning, 6:30, get in the car, start driving, and away we go. And I guess that's where we leave here, and we'll catch you in a couple of hours. So next time you see me, I'll be on my way to Euroa. See you soon. Good morning. You find us about 56 minutes out from Euroa. We've been driving for a little while. I wanted to just jump in here. First of all, beautiful sunrise, just absolutely stunning, which is pretty awesome. But I wanted to just do a quick little bit here about autopilot and why it's really good. So the way you activate autopilot on the Tesla Model Y is there's sort of two levels. So first of all, there's adaptive cruise control. So to turn on adaptive cruise control, you push down once on the right hand stalk and that turns on adaptive cruise control. Now I've got mine set to when I turn it on, to keep the speed that I'm at, and then to get it up to 110, because we're in 110 zone, I can either use the right hand dial to dial my speed up, or I can hold down on the stalk and that'll adjust us up to the actual speed limit, or you can double tap on the speed limit on the screen and that'll adjust it. If you want to see a lot more about autopilot, I've got entire videos on it. In fact, my overview of the Model Y, go check out that video. I do discuss it in more detail. To turn on the lane assist, which is autopilot, double tap, and there we go. We've got the two blue lines which indicate that I've got autopilot on, and now the car is driving itself. Now the way that you know that autopilot is available is this little blue steering wheel will be grey and that'll show up, and if there aren't lane markings excuse me, if there aren't lane markings, then it won't work. It does need the lane markings on the road. Now you do need to keep your hands on the wheel. So if I take my hands off the wheel, in fact I'll just have my hands just sort of on the wheel, but I'll leave them sort of not applying pressure, you'll get a little notification here after about 30 or 40 seconds saying apply pressure to the steering wheel or autopilot's going to turn itself off. And if it does turn itself off, you actually can't turn it back on again until the car puts itself into park. And now that glorious sunrise is going to come shining in, so hopefully I'm not going to be too bright on camera. Oh, that is... I will say something, for these early morning drives, you get to see the most stunning sunrises. This is just pretty awesome. Anyway, where was I? Autopilot, right. So, yeah, so there you go. It says apply turning pressure to the steering wheel, and it shines blue, gives you a bit of a warning, give it a bit of wiggle, and you're fine. The thing that I think that autopilot is absolutely awesome for long drives like these. Now, you do still need to pay attention. You can't just turn it on and have a nap or watch something on YouTube. You do still need to pay attention to the road. You need to watch what the other drivers are doing, all that kind of jazz. But just the fact that I don't have to be controlling the speed with my foot on the accelerator, and I don't have to be controlling the turns. I do still need to keep my hand on the wheel and paying attention, but just those two things that I don't have to focus on constantly means that instead of focusing on my driving 90-95% of concentration, you're focusing on your driving 75-85%, and just that little bit less of concentration means that you have far less fatigue when you're driving, or at least that's how it is for me. So I think autopilot has been a revelation for me for long drives like this, which is just fantastic. Now a little bit about our route. Now I left at about 6:15 in the morning, and I forgot to turn on the trip meter until I was just driving through the CBD. So you'll see that my current drive, I've done 99 Ks. Yep, there you go. You'll see that with my current drive, I've done 99 Ks, but the trip meter's only got 70 on it because I only turned it on afterwards. And you'll see the efficiency is not as good because I did a little bit of road driving, so the car was more efficient, and I only started the trip to Sydney trip meter once we were on the highway, so it's less efficient, which is actually a good way to see the difference in efficiency there between side road driving and highway driving. Yeah, other than that, we're on our way to Euroa. We should get there with 55%. Now this estimation of how much percent the battery is going to be at your destination is always interesting, because generally at the beginning of my journeys it's lower than what it ends up being, and as I drive more and more, I kind of drive a bit like a nana, so I drive quite efficiently just normally, not because I'm deliberately doing it, but that's just how it is. I find that that number gets better. So for example, when I left home, I think it was about 49%, and now it's up to 55%. So as I've driven more in my way of driving, the car's realized, oh, the battery's actually going to be in a better condition when you get to where you're going, it's actually a fun little game where, you know, my wife and I often will play, and Archie, if he's in the car with us, you know, we'll often do the whole, what does it say at the beginning, and what can we get it to say at the end, and can we get better efficiency than what the car thought we were going to get at the beginning of our journey. So yeah, that's what we consider fun. Now, one last thing before I sign off, before our next check-in. So we've got 50 minutes to go until we get to Euroa, and I've drunk about a quarter of a litre of water since I left. I really need to go to the bathroom, and I've got 50 minutes to go. This is why, you know, people who go, oh, I'm not going to buy an electric car until it can do 1,000 kilometers in one go. Do you pee in a bottle while you're driving? How do you do it? Anyway, it's just a thought. Yeah, I'll check in again in about 45 minutes, about 50-ish minutes when we're about to pull into Euroa. We'll see you soon. Quick update. So you remember how I was all, ooh, look how good my efficiency is because I drive like a nana. Well, have a look what's happened to my efficiency. So I was driving at 110 for quite some time because there wasn't any traffic around me, all that sort of jazz, and my efficiency has taken an absolute nosedive. Now the car is predicting that I'm going to be at 50% by the time I get to Euroa. Now I have slowed down to 80, but that's only because this is an 80 zone because there's some construction going on, so that's why I've slowed down to 80. But when I go back up to 110, I reckon driving at 110, which again is really not great for efficiency. If we have a look at our efficiency there, you can see that it's all kind of, you know, meeting up. This guy's over. Okay, maybe we're out of the 80 zone, so I'll just push down on the stalk and get back up to 110. But yeah, the efficiency has taken a real hit in the nose because I've been doing 110 on the motorway. Also, something I didn't think about, it's only 11 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty chilly, so that would be affecting the battery as well. So it's going to be interesting because I reckon by the time I get there in 21 minutes, that initial prediction that the car said I was going to be at 49% by the time I got there might end up being accurate. Let's see what happens. So we've just come off the highway into Euroa. We're 2 minutes out from the supercharger, and as you can see, that last little bit of the highway doing 110 really smacked us around in terms of efficiency. So it's predicting that we're going to be down to, it was 47, now it's 48%. This whole efficiency thing is a bit odd. Anyway, we're almost there, we're a minute away. Now it's interesting because I think the reason why initially when I put in the whole thing, the maps was saying, go to Camberwell and get that extra 5%, because if you remember, it said, right, go to Camberwell, you'll get to 95%, get back up to 100, and then you'll get to Woodonga with 10%. So I think the car was saying, look, to be on the safe side, get that extra 5% at Camberwell, because if you don't, you could get to Woodonga with 5%, but I'm not happy leaving you with just 5% to get to Woodonga. So it would have been interesting if I'd kept going to Woodonga, but to be on the safe side, we'll stop here in Euroa. I'll get up to 80, 85 maybe, and yeah, we'll see how we go from there, and then on to Woodonga. Actually, it'll be interesting to see if it tells me to go to Woodonga, or if it says, if you're at 80% in Euroa, just skip Woodonga and go, further on. But most importantly, I'm really looking forward to peeing because I really need to go. You know when you you don't think about it, so you sort of you're not thinking about it, and it's totally cool, and then you get closer to your destination, and then you start thinking about it. Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. Okay, so according to this, the supercharger should be just here on the left. And there it is. And there's the public bathroom just across the road. Yes! Public bathroom. We love public bathrooms. Well, not public, but we love bathrooms. We love bathrooms. So. And now we get to show off the simplicity and the really great bit about Superchargers. Now before we do, let's have a look at how efficient or not efficient that drive was. So overall we were 158, we've done 186 Ks. Yeah, let's go plug in and see what happened. So I was going to try and show off and show, oh look how simple this is, but it turns out that I think I've parked a little too far away. So you really have to, with these older chargers, you have to really get in closer. So let's go and straighten up a little bit and back in a bit. But yeah, that's kind of funny how the cable was. So let's just go forward a bit. So we line up a bit better and get right back in there. So we go right up against sort of wait for it to beep. So now we are a little bit closer, and now I show off how simple it is to, oh for heaven's sakes, now I show off how simple it is to use a supercharger. You simply push the button. I don't know how it knows my car's there, but it does. Plug it in, wait for that to turn green, and we're good to go. Speaking of going, turn green so I can go. Just pick that up. There we go. And we're charging. Let's go into the car and have a look at what kind of speeds we're getting. It's kind of funny, as I plugged in, you could hear all the stuff over there go brrr. So let's have a look at how we're going. So we are getting 136 kilowatts per whatever, and that's saying it's putting in 920 kilometers per hour into it. So that's pretty cool. Suggesting that I play while you wait. Thanks, but I'm going to go to the bathroom and we'll come back. So it is 8:32. Yeah, let's see how we go. I'm going to try and, okay, so I'm just going to put my hand up here to try and block the sun from the screen. You can see it's all happening pretty quick. So the charge is slowed right down. So we're down to 64 kilowatts. It's going to take us 15 minutes to get up to 100%. We don't need to get to 100%. And it's told us here that charging at the expected rate for present battery energy level, expect charging rate to slow as battery approaches maximum charge level. So that's all good. So we're just going to say stop charging. We're going to unlock the charge port, because we've got more than enough to get us to Woodonga. In fact, if we put in our destination now, so we want to go to Camzilla, and there we go. It's worked out that it's reckoning we could go straight to Gandagai, and it's going to avoid Woodonga. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's do that then. And then, so we've got 3 hours and 18 minutes to get to Gundagai, and yeah, we'll see how we go. Let's unplug and get going. So this is quite interesting, because when we left Melbourne, the car predicted that we were going to get to Euroa at 49%, and then as we were driving, being more efficient or not efficient or what have you, it got up to as high as saying that the car was going to be up to like 60% when we got to Euroa. Eventually, when we got to Euroa, we actually were at about 49%, so the car was pretty much bang on accurate in terms of what it thought we were going to be and where we actually were. Now, because we charged past 80% and that kind of thing, because we charged how we charged, so because the way we charged how we charged, the car's now saying, okay, forget Woodonga, go straight to Gandagai, and you're going to get to Gandagai with 12%. So let's see if we actually get to Gandagai with 12%, a little bit more than 12%, a little bit less than 12%. I reckon, just a guess, we're probably going to get to Gandagai with about somewhere between 8 and 10%, because I noticed that doing 110 on the highway, in fact we might want to slow down to 100 at some stage, but doing 110 on the highway seems to have dropped the range even down below what the car was predicting it would be. So should be interesting. Let's get up to speed, turn on autopilot, and yeah, let's see how we go. And so it is 710 kilometers to Sydney. We've had an interesting development. So remember how I said it was going to be interesting to see how the battery adjusted to driving on the highway? It adjusted quite dramatically. So I was watching the percentage, like, you know, the predicted percentage of, oh, you're going to be at 12% when you get there, you're going to be at 10% when you get there, you're going to be at 8% when you get there, you're going to be at that 5%. And when it got to 5%, the map automatically changed to go, yeah, let's not go to Gundagai, let's go to Woodonga first. And you're going to be at 48% when you get to Woodonga. So looks like we're going to Woodonga, not straight to Gandagai, which is fine. I appreciate the fact that the car, you know, automatically knows, hey, you might not make it to where you're going. Because I will admit, I was having this is the first time I've ever had anything remotely like range anxiety, and if you think about it, this is actually a really good thing that the car adjusted and made the changes necessary and sorted everything. By the way, I apologize about the sun. I must be quite weirdly exposed with the camera, but you know, what can you do? Nature. Yeah, I suppose it's a good thing that the car automatically adjusted. The thing that bugs me a little bit about it is that surely the car is smart enough to know on the map that the speed limit here is 110, and the car could just predict. Like, I think the car should go with the you know, hope for the best but plan for the worst. And I think it's not planning for the worst, because if the car knows that I was theoretically going to do 110 the whole way from Euroa to Gandagai, then it should have predicted the amount of energy I would have left at Gandagai, assuming I'm going to be doing 110 the whole way. Where obviously as soon as I got on the highway, and within like 5 minutes of doing 110, the car realized very quickly we weren't going to make it to Gandagai and we'd have to stop in Woodonga. So I think that, yeah, I mean, I get that. I suppose the car, you know, from Tesla's point of view, they don't want to make it feel like the car doesn't have as much range as, you know, they want to give the impression the car's got as much range as possible. So that's fair enough. I get that, but it would just be nicer if it didn't have to do the whole, oh yeah, you can totally make it to Gandagai. Oh wait, you're going to drive to the speed limit on the way to Gandagai? No, you're not going to make it to Gandagai. Like that. I don't know. I realize everything's a balance, and everything's, you know, you sort of got to decide, do we do it this way? Do we do it that way? I don't know. It's a bit odd to me. So yeah, so we will be in Woodonga in an hour and 18. We'll get there with 49%. Like, I'll barely have time to blink. I mean, that supercharge in Euroa was so quick. Like, I reckon, you know, we'll get to Woodonga, we'll plug in, and it'll tell us, yeah, plug in for 5 minutes here, and off you go. So yeah, let's see how we go. We're about 2.4 kilometers away from the Woodonga turnoff. Interesting, this little drive here, because you remember when we left, it was predicting that we were going to be at 49% when we got to Woodonga, and over the next sort of 5-10 minutes it went, you know, 48, 47, 46, but then it got to 40, and it just kind of hovered at 40 for most of the drive. It's just dropped to 39% as a prediction just recently. So it obviously sort of took it sort of like 5 to 10 minutes to work out, okay, Lee's doing 110, he's going to keep doing 110, so I'm going to predict what percentage will be at there when you're driving at 110, which, yeah, Interesting. I'm guessing that's what it did. So turn off is coming up in 1 kilometer. We'll turn off autopilot shortly. And interesting that the supercharger, it looks like it's about 3 minutes off of the highway. So on the one hand, again, it's that whole, again, I apologize for the quality of the footage here, because the sun's straight at me. Hopefully it looks okay. I can't see what it looks like. I was saying it's interesting the decisions that have been made in terms of where to put the superchargers, because it would be most convenient if the supercharger was at like a one of those roadhouse, like a petrol station that's just off the highway. So just turn off, get there, keep going. There may have been professional concerns there. Maybe the petrol stations didn't want to give Tesla the space to put in the superchargers. I could see how they would see that as competition. But it may also be that from Tesla's point of view, they thought, right, well, let's put the superchargers in places where there is more facilities around. But then again, most of these service stations, on the edge of highways, they have all the facilities. They've got junk food normally. Some have got Subways. Subway's kind of healthy, or at least it's healthier than a burger and fries. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Another selling point, maybe the way that is that an. So check that. There's an Ioniq 5 in Woodonga. What the actual? Okay, yeah, cool. Now we can't get them in Melbourne, but there's one in Woodonga, just sitting there. You could drive in and buy it. Or maybe it's display. I don't know. That is very much a head scratcher for me. But what I was talking about is maybe the superchargers are a little bit further in towards the towns or the CBDs or what have you, because the way that Tesla was able to get planning approval, all that kind of stuff, is they sold it to the towns in terms of, hey, we're going to bring, people might usually just drive past the town, but if we put a supercharger in, they're more likely to come into the town, park their car, and while they're charging, they might go into a gift shop or go to a local business and that sort of thing. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. Because what they didn't say is that the car charges so darn fast that you don't really have time to go to the shops or anything, because it's 10-20 minutes. In fact, so they're saying, so the car is telling me that we will charge for 15 minutes here. So it's predicting we'll get here at 39%, and we will charge for 15 minutes. Now here's the thing that I don't understand. Here's the thing that kind of annoys me is it doesn't tell me to charge to a certain percentage. It says, right, well, you're going to get there with 39% and you're going to charge for 15 minutes. It would be nice if it said 39 to 80, or so I know the percentage that I need to be at when I unplug and get going. Maybe it will tell me at the end of that, I don't know. So it looks like the supercharger is in here somewhere. Oh, there's a shopping centre, so that's a good idea. Some signage would be good. Oh no, there they are. Okay, I see them. But again, if look, the map is good. Like, the map showed me exactly where to go and exactly where they were. But it would have been nice if they'd given me a bit of signage to find it. Now, I must remember to go right up to the edge. I am not a good parking person. I'm not particularly good at parking, as you can see. But yes, I've got to remember to get right up to the edge because the cables are not particularly long. And let's go in and plug in and see what's what. So this looks like the same sort of charge. You know what, I like the fact that it's got signage there so I can see, right, DC, go in and get the DC one. So pull it out, push the button, plug it in, put this one back because it always seems to fall down, and happy days. And let's see what kind of charging speeds we're going to get. So that's quickly speeding up. 77, 86, 99, 109, 117. I do appreciate, again, it's not a big deal, but I do appreciate the fact that it does show me what I'm paying for the current session where we're charging. Looks like we're topping out at 126 kilowatts. Oh, okay, see, there we go. So it goes 10 minutes remaining to continue trip. Now I'm going to stay for a little bit longer than 10 minutes because I need to go find a bathroom, and I might take my water bottle with me to see if I can fill up somewhere. By the way, just a little FYI, in terms of food, I did realize after I recorded the intro for this video yesterday that all the food I showed you was junk food. I did actually then feel a bit guilty, and I went to the supermarket and I got some nuts and I got some soy chips, kind of healthy, and some muesli bars and things like that. So I'm not just eating biltong and junk food on this road trip. Mostly biltong and junk food, but not just biltong and junk food. I am eating some healthier stuff. Cool. I'm gonna go find a bathroom and I'll be back in hopefully about 10 minutes to see how the charging is going. So there's this cute little cafe just around the corner. And you can see there they do pickles, pastries, plates of food, coffee, cakes, hot drinks and brews, and then just across the street is the bathroom, which is where I'm headed right now. I barely made it across the street to the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I get a notification from the car on my watch saying, hey, you've charged enough to continue on your trip. So we had 5, maybe 10 minutes here and we were ready to go again, which is actually, there's good and bad to it. On the one hand, if you are actually looking to have a bit more of a relaxed drive and stop along the way, what you're going to need to do, I think in a lot of instances, is actually stop, plug in to charge, and then charge to, let's say, 80 or 90%, and then move the car away from the charger so you're not paying idle fees, and then maybe, you know, chill for half an hour, have lunch, whatever. But the good part of that is that if you're one of those people who just wants to drive and drive and drive and just get through the drive as quickly as possible, I only had to wait 10 minutes here. I had like 10-15 minutes in Euroa, so you can really, like, I'm really impressed actually by how quick the charging stops are with all this integrated stuff. So let's go unplug everything and get going. So you could stop the charging from within the car, or you can just come here, push the button, it'll turn the charging off, pop it back in there, and you're good to go. Now, the car is predicting that we will get to Gandagai in 1 hour and 53 minutes, and we will have 22%. I reckon that's going to drop to about 10% by the time we get there. So let's see how we go. Maybe I should have charged until 80% here, but it is what it is, and let's see what happens. Now this is interesting. So you'll remember that when we left Woodonga, the car was saying, it was predicting that we were going to be at 22%. Oh, hello? We were going to be at 22% by the time we got to Gandagai. And let me just overtake this person. Yeah, and I predicted that we wouldn't actually be at 22%. I predicted that we'd actually be at a fair bit less than 22% because of what happened between, Euroa and Woodonga. Well, then obviously when I was driving to get back to the highway, it's a little bit slower, so the efficiency was slightly different, and I saw the prediction going up. So we end up to like 23%, 24%, and I thought, well, that's going to change once I get onto the highway. Well, I've been on the highway for about 5 minutes, and again, I'm doing 110. Like, I'm not going slowly. but now it's predicting that we're going to be at 26% when we get to Gandagai. So quite frankly, your guess is as good as mine. I'm just going to go over to this lane. Something that I did want to actually bring up, because I was just chatting to my wife before I turned the cameras back on, and something that she mentioned that was a good point, is that another possible reason as to why the car couldn't exactly predict the state of, the percentage of charge that we'd have left when we got to Woodonga, is because yes, the car knows what roads we're going to be on, what speeds, the maximum speeds we're going to be driving, but the car doesn't know the temperature, whether we're going to have a headwind, those sorts of things. So maybe the car was a little bit off between Euroa and Woodonga because it didn't realize it was cold, or it didn't realize we had a headwind or whatever. I don't know if we've got a headwind or a tailwind. I guess I could open up a weather app and check that. I'll see if I can find that out later, but I'm not that smart or with the weather stuff to see. Now, good example of how good autopilot is. That guy was pulling over. Now, probably didn't need to hit the brake quite as hard. I would have preferred if we'd started braking a little bit sooner, but still, I didn't control the pedal for that whole interchange, and here we are. So at the moment it's saying we are going to be at 26% when we get to the Supercharger in Gandagai. Let's see if that's accurate or fanciful. So I've turned the cameras on for a little bit just because I'm hoping, not much. So we're about to go down a little hill, and it's happened a couple times on this drive, and every time, by the time I get the cameras on, it doesn't work. So you see this green line here? This green line represents Regen. So when that line is black, the car is using energy from the battery, and when the line is green, the car is generating energy back into the battery. So you see at the moment we're coasting, and now the car is using, so it's as if I'm pushing my foot down on the accelerator, and then when you're lifting your foot off the accelerator, it turns green, so it's regenning. And it's happened a couple of times while we're driving. Of course, now it's not going to happen because I've turned the cameras on, but it's happened where the battery percentage has actually gone up 1%, which is pretty amazing. Like, you don't get anyone putting petrol back in your car with a petrol car, whereas with an electric car, you actually do, on rare occasions, but it happens, get energy, so much energy back into the car that it goes up 1%. While I'm here, I'll just do a little intro to our Gandagai arrival. So you remember we left Woodonga with 22%. It was predicting we were going to get down to, I don't remember, 22% when we get to Gundagai. It then, as we got onto the highway, weirdly, it went up to 26%, and now it's gradually been going down, and now with 13 minutes to go, 21 kilometers, we're back down to 22%. So again, we're now sort of pretty much spot on. I will bring up this trip meter, and this is quite cool. So this shows you the energy of this, because I should probably do a video just on this app itself, but earlier I said something about wind. You see here, it shows us that a 10.6 kilometer wind from the southwest saved us 1.9 kilometers on this trip already. So there you go. It has actually, the wind has affected it, and it's actually affected us in a positive way, which is pretty cool. It'd be nice if this saved more information, because, so for example, this is showing us information about this trip, and I don't think it's actually talking about the entire trip, because we've done almost 500 kilometers already, and it's only showing us since our last charge. And then we can see rated, again, we can see current drive, and we can see since last charge, which is the same thing really, of course, because we charged and then we drove. But yeah, so there we go. It shows us that we haven't been super efficient on this drive, and again, that's because we're on highway driving, and highway driving is not super efficient. A nice little thing is that you notice my navigation, when I brought this app up, the navigation pops up onto the screen here, and when I pull it down, it goes back there. So there are some sort of nice things that are thought of in here. So you can see that we've actually been a little bit more efficient on this drive from Woodonga to Gundagai than we have been overall. Overall, our efficiency is 160, but we've actually been 158. So, yeah, let's see what the last 12 minutes brings us, and if we actually are at 22 when we get to Gandagai. We're about 1 kilometre away from the Gandagai Supercharger, or 1 minute away, and it's funny because just after I spoke to you previously, we came up on some roadworks that slowed us down to about 80 kilometres an hour and then down to 60 kilometres an hour, just quite briefly, but it was enough to get the predicted charge up from 22% for when we get there down to 23, which is interesting, just how, whoa, that came up on me a bit quicker than I was expecting. And dirt road. Oh, look, the car's going to be filthy. Regardless, I'll have to take it to be cleaned tomorrow. Interesting that the Supercharger. There's a Shell service station there, like with all the facilities and everything. And interesting that the Supercharger's not there. The Supercharger would appear to be tucked in back here behind Oliver's, whatever Oliver's is. And oh, here it is around the back, where we belong, I suppose. No, I'm kidding, I'm just being silly. Oh, I've done a bang up job at this reversing in, haven't I? Actually, I have done a pretty good job, now that I look at it. And again, get very, very close. Closer than would be comfortable. So if we continued now to Golburn, we'd be down to minus 14%. So that's interesting. Let's see how much juice we get here. We're plugged in. Starting to charge. It's warming up. Click. 3 kilowatts, 6 kilowatts, 10 kilowatts. You notice also how it was saying, how it told me that it was preconditioning for the charge. That's kind of cool. 79 kilowatts, 88 kilowatts, 15 minutes to continue. I wanted a bit more time. I want a bit more time to rest. I need to go pee, I need to fill up my water bottle. There's a whole host of things. 133. Yeah, I reckon that's as fast as it's going to be. Okay, 133, that's pretty good. Well, yet again, it's charged pretty darn quickly. So, yeah, got a notification again that my car was ready to continue on its trip. It's now predicting we'll get to Golburn with 21%. Now, it was pretty much bang on accurate last time, so I wonder if we hang about just a little bit longer, maybe we get to like 75% and then see how we go, or do we go now? I reckon I'm going to wait till we get to 75% and then just to have a little bit more. Again, I could you know what, stuff it, we'll leave now. Okay, let me go unplug and we'll be on our way. Back and away we go. And I noticed there's some looks like some Charge Fox chargers over there. Those will probably be the ones that I'll be using on the way home. So that'll be interesting, because my second video, which be sure to tune in for that, I'll be driving back to Melbourne, but I will only be using non-superchargers, and we'll see how that experience goes. Okay, away we go. Okay, so at the moment it's saying we will be at 25% when we get to Golburn. Oh, that was a nice little rest stop. Yeah. There's actually plenty of stuff there. There's, you know, lots of food. You can get cooked food, lots of space, nice little outdoor area. So yeah, it was very cool. Right, this is going to affect our. Wow, might as well put our foot down a little bit, because you got to have a little bit of fun, right? Whee! never gets old. And back down. Look what that did to our efficiency. 538. Not so efficient, I think one would say. But that's going to drop right down. So keep watching that, and that's gonna keep going down. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so it's still predicting. So we're at 72% now, and it's predicting we're going to be down to 25% by the time we get to Golburn, 172 kilometers away, in 1 hour and 45 minutes. And it's saying that we will need to charge in Golburn for 15 minutes. I might charge in Golburn for 20 minutes, because no, you know what? I'm just going to do what it tells me to do. So that's all good in the hood. And again, you can see our, the efficiency is dropping right. It's funny, like I noticed this morning, when you start the car, the efficiency starts at like 600 and then obviously drops as you drive normally. So it's funny how it starts like really high and then lowers down to average it out as to what you're actually doing. Yeah, so look, unless something magically interesting, oh, there's a red button number 3, hello, they can't see me. Yeah, so unless something dramatically interesting happens sometime in the next hour and 42 minutes, we'll catch you again in about an hour and 40 minutes or so when we're arriving in Golburn. See you soon. We're just about to turn off at Golburn. It's about 6 kilometers off of the highway where the supercharger is, so that's not the most convenient, but we'll survive. But it's interesting. I'd love to chat to whoever it was who was involved with the decision of the installation of all the superchargers and the thoughts of what went behind why we put this supercharger here, why we put this supercharger there. Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at the reasoning behind where these have been positioned, because 6 kilometers off of the motorway, it's really not that big of a deal, in the grand scheme of things. But like, there's a service station just there, so, and there's an on-ramp and an off-ramp, so it would have been most convenient if the supercharger was right off the highway, and I didn't have to go 6 kilometers off the highway to get to the supercharger. Again, grand scheme of things, not the big deal. And I know that in the future, as charging infrastructure gets pushed out, this will get better. And I know I had that interview with the BP Pulse folks, and they're definitely looking at putting their charging stations right off the highway where people need to charge quickly when they're on long journeys like this. So yeah, 4 minutes away, 2.9 kilometers, and it is predicting now that we will get there with 23%. It's not awfully helpful when it says turn right onto unnamed road, but I'm guessing this is the unnamed road. Okay, this is where the visitor centre is. That makes sense. Yep, and there are the superchargers. I can see them there in the corner. I presume there'll be a bathroom at the visitor centre. Again, I'm probably not going to have a lot of time to actually... Ooh, there's quite a few cars here. Cool. Okay, so what did we do? We did 173 kilometers, not that great with efficiency. If we didn't charge here, we'd be at minus 22% when we get to where we're going. And yeah, let's go plug in and see what's what. Yeah, it's one of those double ones. Let's see if I can pull it out this time without it falling. Oh, spider webs. There we go. And push the button. I do love how it just automatically opens up and away you go. Very cool. Okay, let's have a quick look and see what charging speed we're getting here. 10 kilowatts, 21 kilowatts, 54, 70, 87, 102, 109, 116, 128, 130. Cool, looks like it's topping out at about 130, which is 15 minutes, okay. Okay, we're ready to go on our final leg. We're at 74%. The car reckons we're gonna get to Camzilla with 30% at 5:16. It's 2 hours and 22 minutes away, so let's get going. Now, it's interesting that we're doing more distance, but we don't need as much charge. And I reckon that's because once we get into Sydney and we slow down dramatically because there'll be traffic, the car will again be more efficient. So let's get going and see how we go. Let's see, we're going to get to see some more areas of Golburn that we haven't seen before. By the way, you remember how I was saying how maybe, you know, one of the ideas of having the superchargers more in the center of town is to benefit the town, so that, you know, help the economy, so people who are driving through, they stop to charge, they get stuff. I'm staying with my cousin, who very generously is letting me stay with them up in Sydney, and I realized that the gift that I got for them for saying thank you for letting me stay, I'd forgotten it in Melbourne. And so I just got them a bottle or something at the visitor centre. So, and some chili mustard, which I saw because I love chili and I love mustard, so that's kind of cool. So there you go. It worked. If the reason for putting the supercharger in the middle of town was to get people to come into the middle of town off the highway and to spend some money in the town, it worked. I did it. Well done. I wanted to jump on here quickly. We're not in Sydney yet. In fact, we've still got another 81 k's to go before we get to where we're going. But have a look at my efficiency. I've been on the highway pretty much the whole time. It's been up and down hills, same as it's been today. I've been doing 110 most of the way, and yet the efficiency is a lot better than it's been throughout the day. Like, it's 121, whereas most of the day it's been like 150, 160. So I just, now, okay, it's warmer, so it's 30 degrees outside, so maybe it's because the battery's warmer, maybe it's, we don't have as much as wind. In fact, I'll bring up the, well, there we go. I mean, it's actually saying that going uphill has cost me 81%, and going downhill has saved me 12.6%. Okay, so there's that, but, yeah, it's... if anyone knows in the comments, or anyone got ideas in the comments, I'm sure there's loads of different parameters, but it'd be really cool if, like, there were some sensors or something on the car that could then give you a readout and go, this is why your efficiency was better on this leg of the drive than that leg of the drive. Now, I appreciate that this app kind of does that, but it only kind of does that. It'd be nice if you could sort of really go deep dive. I might have a look in the Tessie app and see. I've done a video on the Tessie app, but I haven't put it out yet. So the Tessie app's an app that gives you, like, really, you know, fine details in terms of the stuff you can work out with the car. I need to edit that video and get it up. Yeah, just interesting that look at, I'm down to 119, although I've slowed down because I'm behind this person here, but interesting, isn't it? Welcome to wonderful Sydney traffic. Now, I'm gonna make an executive decision because the map was telling me to turn right there and go all along this route and take the bridge. Now, that's probably better traffic, but that's not as pretty, and we're in Sydney and I want to see the bridge. So I'm gonna go straight here and just keep going straight, because pretty much going straight here is going to take me to George Street or thereabouts, or that direction, and eventually my map will work out that I don't want to go through the tunnel and I want to go over the bridge, and we will work it out. So at the moment I'm going to get there at 5:27. Fingers crossed I don't regret this. Now, they close at 6, so yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, slight change of plans to our change of plans. I was heading towards the bridge and traffic was just unpleasant, let's say. So we've taken a right turn and we're going to go the way that the car's telling me to go, and that'll be that. Also, isn't Sydney just so pretty? If you've never been to Sydney, it is a very, very pretty city. I will say that. Another thing to look at is check how good my efficiency has been, and that was even before we even got into city driving. So again, city driving far more efficient for an electric car than, yeah, I know, I go on and on and on, but yeah, Sydney, such a pretty city. Let's get through what we need to get through, and then I will update you when we are closer to our destination, because oh god, I'm gonna have to turn across all this traffic. Oh no, okay, it's easing up. Okay, I'm not the biggest fan of turning across traffic. This is, I will say, this is one of those situations where if you're in a city that you're not familiar with and you're trying to follow the maps on the Model Y or the Model 3, this is where I miss having the maps more in front of me. Like if you could have a HUD, like a heads-up display, and have the maps, the guides of like where you need to go, oh, that'd be for situations like this, because focusing on city driving during traffic, because it's 6 minutes past 5 in the afternoon, so driving through a busy city traffic, and I used to live in Sydney, so I'm kind of familiar with it, but that was 20 years ago, so not really familiar with it. So yeah, so being in a place where you're trying to follow the map guidance when you're not familiar with the place and there's traffic, so you need to be paying attention, it would be helpful to have the guidance in front of you as opposed to having to look down all the time, and a little bit to your side. So this is the one instance where I do find having the display down at the left less than ideal, let us say. Coin laundry. You know, I find the fact there's a coin laundrette that's... And also, I don't want to touch the cameras right now. Oh, set of lights. Okay, cool. So I'm going to switch off the cameras now, and we will catch up when we are almost at our destination. See you soon. So, funny story. I could have kept going the way I was going, and there's a way to get to the bridge anyway, because there's the bridge. I can't show it to you right now because, you know, I'm driving and everything. There's the Sydney Harbour Bridge. This is just so pretty. Look at the cool walls and the cool rocks and everything. It's awesome. So after all of that, I could have stayed zigging when I zagged, and it still got me onto the bridge. So just as I know, people who live in Sydney are going to be sitting there going, oh, you moron. Fair enough. I'm a tourist. Turns out that the tunnel that was going to take me to Newcastle, I just turned left off of that tunnel, and that brought me onto the bridge anyway. So I didn't have to try and get through the city like a twit. Here we are on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which is kind of cool, and the Opera House will be somewhere on my right. There it is, hidden by concrete and stuff. And this detour's only added a few minutes to my journey. So yeah, happy days. I will simply allow you to enjoy the crossing of the bridge. Think about ND8. So that was the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I hope you enjoyed it. And now I'm going to try and get to Chatswood. I think my map still thinks I'm on that part of the highway, which I'm very much not. So I'm just going to keep going, I guess, and as soon as I can get off this, I'll get off this, I guess, maybe. Well, I've learned something interesting about Sydney. Apparently the left-hand lane here is for turning and the weak. So remember how at the beginning of this whole video I said that I wanted this to be, not scientific, not controlled, but more of a realistic type of road trip. Well, in keeping with that spirit, Dad, who in this performance will be played by me, decided that he knew better than the maps in Sydney because Dad used to live here 20 years ago and managed to get himself lost and has managed to add a good 20 or so minutes to the journey. Still going to be 30% when we get there. Also, I know Sydney, I know it seems like when you've got 3 lanes and you make the 2 right-hand lanes both turning lanes, that seems efficient, but when tourists from another town come, we expect the 2 left-hand lanes to be straight, and the middle one can be straight and turning. But if the middle one is just turning, well, very often you end up in a lane where you have to turn and you don't want to turn, and you 2 minutes and I'm there. It has been a journey. Well, that was an adventure. I'm back in my office. I did record a couple of. I tried to summarize the drive about 3 times when I finally parked in Roseville in Chatswood, but I didn't make a lot of sense, and also I forgot to look at the cost of the charging, so I wanted to redo the summation bit here in the office when I've got all the details in front of me. So let's have a look at the overall trip. Now keep in mind, this isn't entirely accurate because I forgot to start the trip meter when I left Melbourne. I only remembered when I was just passing Melbourne CBD. I was sort of on Balti Bridge. So this is the distance from Melbourne CBD all the way to our final destination, Sydney. So overall, we did 885 kilometers. We had an average of, we used 133 kilowatt hours, so that's what we used out of the battery, and our efficiency was 151 watt hours per kilometer, which is actually better than I was expecting. And you can see in that final drive, so since we left Golburn, we actually did 208 Ks, 25 kilowatt hours, and we did an efficiency of 122 watt hours per kilometer. And I reckon that's because we hit the traffic in Sydney. And, as I said, when you hit traffic and when you're sort of stop-starting, that efficiency is a little bit better. Now let's have a look at the cost of the charging stops that we did along the way. So if we jump into the Tesla app here, the way you can go and find your charging is you actually want to go to your account details. So tap on the image of yourself. It's probably going to be an image of yourself in the top right hand corner. That takes you to your account details, and then you go into account and then tap on charging. You can then, you can set up other things there, but we're going to go and have a look at history. And let's just go ahead and scroll down to, there we go. So from Euroa, so in Euroa we paid $13.44 and we charged 21 kilowatt hours at 64 cents per kilowatt hour. In Woodonga, we did $14.08. We did 22 kilowatts at 64. In Gundagai, we did $19.20, 30 kilowatt hours at 64 cents per kilowatt. And finally in Golburn, we did $19.84, 31 kilowatt hours at 64 cents. And that all comes together a total of $66.56, which is not too shabby. Now, if we wanted to add in, once we got to Sydney, I did go to the Macquarie charger and charge up there, and that was another $17. Normally I would have charged at the hotel or where I was staying, but I was staying with my cousins. They've got a long driveway. I didn't want to park them in basically to charge my car overnight, but I could have charged overnight at my cousin's place or where I was staying. So I mean, $66, 67. Let's round it out to 67. Why not? I'm feeling generous. $67 to drive up to Sydney. It's not a tiny amount of money, but I think it's a little bit cheaper than it would have been going in a petrol car. I'm terrible with maths and all that kind of jazz, so you can work out 885 kilometers in a petrol car. What's the average there? What it would cost? Let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to know what it would be. In terms of how long the journey took, again, because I stupidly got lost in Sydney because I didn't want to follow the map's instructions. It was going to take about 11 hours and it ended up taking about 11 hours and 30 minutes, 11 hours and 40 minutes, which I appreciate is a bit longer than it would be if you were driving with a petrol car. But interestingly, it wasn't that much longer, because if you think about all the stops, most of the stops that we made, you know, we did 4 stops, and each of those stops was 10 to 15 minutes. Now, they could have been 10 minutes if I just stayed in the car and peed in a bottle, I suppose, but, or you know, there was a bathroom. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, it could have been only 40 minutes worth of charging along the way, and the rest of the time I could have just been driving. So in terms of time, you could do it in 10 hours 40, 10 hours 50 maybe. Yeah, so I reckon in terms of time, I mean, I'd rather do it, you know, have slightly longer breaks. Like, I think what I might do next time is try and work out a way that I might actually have slightly longer charging stops and do fewer stops. So you could do, you know, you could go and, you know, stop at Camberwell, get up to 100%, go straight to Woodonga, but then take the time in Woodonga to get all the way up to 90%, 100%, as long as there aren't other people waiting, and then have a coffee break in Woodonga. So don't have a 10-minute break in Woodonga, have a 20, 30-minute, you know, stop, and then go, you know, either Gandagai and have a really quick stop in Gandagai, like a little 5-10 minute stop in Gandagai, and then have another slightly longer stop in Golburn. And you could probably do it with 3 stops. Maybe if I'm feeling energetic in a few weeks' time, I might try it again. I'll have to get a pass from the wife. But yeah, that could actually be interesting. What was the trip overall? It was really easy. It was an absolute doddle. I think the thing that impressed me the most was when I left Euroa, and how it was telling me, skip Woodonga, go straight to Gundagai, you'll get there with 10%. And then as I got on the highway, I could see it going, the prediction was, okay, you're going to be there with 10%, 9%, 8%, 7%. And the first time in my life, I had a tiny bit of range anxiety. And the fact that when it got to 5%, the navigation just automatically changed and said, basically, look, you're not going to make it to Gundagai, go to Woodonga instead. That was fantastic for me. I mean, for me, it was fine. Like, I can work out, you know, we're probably not going to make it, so let's go and find the nearest charger. But if someone like my mother, who's not that confident with technology and all that sort of stuff, that's not fair. Mum is confident with technology, but if someone wasn't familiar with electric cars and all that sort of stuff, the Tesla just works it out for you. I'd be interested to drive some other cars and see what that experience is like. I'm sure most of them are pretty smart these days and can work it out. Even if they didn't, you could use a better route planner and plug shed to work out where you need to go. So yeah, it was pretty easy. I definitely felt a lot more, a lot less fatigued. I still was fatigued, because I mean, I drove for 11 something hours, but I definitely was a lot less fatigued than I would have been if I was driving a car that didn't have autopilot, I think. So, you know, I would have had to focus a lot more. So yeah, look, if you've made it to the end, I'm really impressed, because this was a long video. I've got to try and find a way to, hopefully it's not as long as it is at the moment. At the moment, my video, before I add this bit, is about 1 hour and 7 minutes. So hopefully by the time you're watching this, I've managed to edit it down a little bit. I should stop talking so it's not so long. Yeah, I hope that was interesting. Be sure to watch my other video about the Sydney trip, because once I was in Sydney, when I drove back down, I didn't use any of the superchargers. I used only non-Tesla chargers. And that was, I won't spoil it for you, but there were some challenges, but not any challenges that were like major, you know, big issue. So be sure to watch that one. That one will be coming very, very soon. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. I hope you found it interesting, somewhat entertaining. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have subscribed already, thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you on the next one. Safe and happy driving. Wow, this one, the bloopers may be longer than the actual video. So the map said stay on the M1, and the signs all said either M8 or M5. And I was like, So I'm in a tunnel. I think I'm going the correct way. I mean, it's not like I can turn off or anything. So let's see where we show up. Look, it's just normal, you know, it's where... And then managed to get across the bridge and forgot to push record on the camera, which was... No? Oh, no. Oh, because it's taking photos. Okay. $10 minutes, and this is like the longest set of lights in the history of lights. I think I'm just going to sum this whole thing up when I get back to Melbourne, and we'll do the sum up, because... You hear that? I say, and I mean. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Safe and happy driving. Oy vey.